Occasionally, as we go through the political world, there are candidates out there who choose to run for a higher office, and nobody can really fathom why that person chooses to run for the office, especially in the office of the presidency. And now people theorize that if that person chooses to run for the higher office, that there's no real way of a person winning. It's for name recognition or to enact a higher office or an agenda that that person wants on the lower office that he or she currently holds. Now, I've seen some of the numbers that some of these presidential candidates are already racking up, and this seems like a very expensive way to try and enact your agenda, but I'm no person to judge on any of that. But California District 15 Representative Eric Swalwell seems to fall on that case because I don't see any sort of path for him winning the presidency, and getting officially into the race seems to be something that's just a waste of money to try and get something else accomplished. Eric Swalwell is a fourth-term representative representing California's 15th district, which is one of the most affluent districts in the entire country, and he had almost no name recognition until towards the end of his last term in Congress. In this last term, while having a tweet storm exchange with Joe Biggs, Eric Swalwell made a name for himself across this entire country as the person who threatened the entire country, or at least all of the gun owners of the country, with nukes if they didn't comply with his agenda. I'm not making this up. Here is the tweet that he actually put out. After Biggs said, "So basically Rep Swalwell wants a war because that's what you would get. You're out of your fucking mind if you think I give up my rights and give the government all of the power," Swalwell says, "And it would be a short war, my friend. The government has nukes. Too many of them, but they're legit. I'm sure if we talked, we could find some common ground to protect our families and communities." I made a video talking about this when it happened because it just blew my mind the fact that a sitting U.S. representative would make this sort of threat against the citizenry of the country. And I wasn't alone about that. That was actually one of the most popular videos that came out of this channel. But nobody in the world thought that a potential presidential candidate, and Swalwell had talked about running for president, could ever muster the courage to threaten the entire citizenry of the country with nuclear weapons. Now, Swalwell turned around and tried to claim that this was a joke, and we'll see in the next tweet coming up, but also pivoted around to making fun of all of the people out there that thought he was a tyrant because of the fact that he made a imminent threat to the people of the country that didn't want to bend to his will, and used one of the deadliest methods that he had to his disposal right away in the beginning. Swalwell tweets, "America's gun debate in one thread. 1. Propose a buyback of assault weapons. 2. Gun owner says he'll go to war with USA if that happens," which that would actually be the other way around. I don't mean to editorialize this, but that would be the USA going to war with the gun grabbers rather than this person going to war with the USA, but that's for another video. 3. I sarcastically point out USA isn't losing his assault weapon ban. It's not the 18th century, and we go back to what I just said about which side is which. 4. I'm called a tyrant. 5. Zero progress. While it's very early in his young candidacy, Swalwell does show very little in the far of an actual policy that he would want to enact. I mean, yes, we are looking at this past argument and seeing the fact that Swalwell's little pet project for the presidency is going to be gun control, or gun confiscation at this point, because I really think that gun control is a very weak word in a case like this. But other than that, there's really very little in the form of any sort of agenda that Swalwell has seriously put forward. What I can say about Eric Swalwell and the agenda that he is going to put forward can be very well demonstrated in the tweet that's about to come up. It was a picture that Swalwell posted while he was standing in front of Trump Tower when he was in New York. On February 20th, while it was snowing in New York City, Swalwell says, "It's snowing in #New York. I need coffee. The closest cafe is inside Trump Tower. This is me walking to an alternative." Now, this was obviously a virtue signal, and it's unclear whether or not Swalwell even needed a cup of coffee. This was almost pointless to post, but it really does seem to show the agenda that Eric decides that he wants to run forward with. And that is the agenda that all of the other major Democrat candidates right now are trying to run forward. They do have a little bit of policy proposal here and there, especially in the case of Warren and Kamala Harris, but for the most part, the policy prescriptions out of all of the major Democrat candidates are, I hate Trump more than the next guy, and that's the reason that you should vote for me. This picture is a very great demonstration of this agenda prescription, and it really shows the way that our country is going. As I mentioned at the top of the video, Eric Swalwell has a very low chance of making it through this primary process. He is not going to be the nominee, and even if he does, he is not going to be the guy that stands up to Trump and takes him down. It's just not going to happen, and this is a very expensive way for Swalwell to try and get an agenda out in the open in order for him to run on it and try and pressure his Democrat representative colleagues into supporting it. Eric Swalwell has very low name recognition. In fact, we saw one of the only things that he's really famous for across the country. He might think that he's a big deal in his district or the districts that surround him, but he's not really a big deal in the rest of the country. Furthermore, Swalwell comes from the 11th most affluent district in the entire country, which means that bridging the gap and coming down and talking to people like me, working class in the middle of the country, just doesn't seem like something that he could do effectively and try and transmit his message to. And while he swears that he was joking when he made all of these statements, it can't be ignored the fact that, again, the thing that Swalwell is most famous for, the thing that he's best known for, and the only reason that people in Middle America know his name at all, is the fact that Swalwell likes to play fast and loose with the idea of tyranny in this country, whether he was joking or not. That was just an indicator as to where he stands and what he wants to do. In all honesty, Swalwell said that he wants to blow up the part of the country that opposes him once he rises to power, and that's beyond the monarchy that we escaped from in this country when we had our revolution. Lastly, Eric Swalwell suffers from the same deficiency that Kamala Harris suffers from, and that's the fact that due to California's stacked primary system, and the top two always making it to the top of the ticket, Swalwell's never run against a Republican. All of his opponents for his congressional seat have always been Democrats, and he's never had to defend his agenda to the other side, and that's going to change largely once he gets out to the rest of the country and has to start defending a radical agenda to the people of Texas, which is turning a little bit more blue at the time, but also defend it to people out in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Wisconsin, and all of the other flyover states that the people of California want to subjugate to their will. When I look at Swalwell and I look at his agenda, all that I see is another rich California Democrat who has an agenda to try and get rid of guns in this country and can't get any name recognition or traction across the country, even when he says something tremendously stupid in order to try and get everybody else on board. So now he is getting up and running for president in order to try and make sure that everybody knows what his agenda is and try and get it proposed in the next Congress. And again, as I said at the top of the video, this seems like a very expensive way to try and enact a radical agenda. What do you think about Eric Swalwell, and what do you think about his chances across the country? I always welcome a thoughtful and positive discussion in the comment section below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at EdsBlog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. Thanks as always for listening to this show and supporting this channel, and remember, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Take care.
You're